Welcome to DAExMachiNation. Join us as we explore the mysteries of this world. Cryptids, monsters, macabre tales, and horror stories abound. Could they be true? Are monsters real?
Good evening, folks, and thank you all for joining us on another edition of DAExMachiNation. In the house tonight from South Crackalacky, my brother from another mother, Robbie Jed Rains, or Robbie Rip Rains, whichever you prefer. And much like the elusive cryptids of the Midwest that we've only caught glimpses of in profile and moving between trees, we now have proof of the existence of the Wild Man. Steve Wildman Monrotis is back with us after a long absence of many hours of overtime and not enough beers together, and hopefully we're going to be rectifying that very soon. So, boys,
worry.
Yeah, boys, I'm so glad you guys are here tonight. Steve, how the hell you been, brother?
Well, I've been here. I've just been using the camouflage of my natural environment, so no one could see me. But no, yeah, I'm good. I'm fighting off a respiratory infection that kicked my butt for a couple of weeks here, but so I got that nice sultry Scarlett Johansson voice going on. But no, other than that, doing well. It's good to hang out with y'all.
He's got a voice so husky it can pull a dog sled.
Or cut down a tree, one or the other.
That's right.
I'm just like Harvey Fierstein, only gayer.
Let's pray.
Why did I say my mother a day,
I love Harvey Fierstein.
Me too.
I do. Hey, boys, before we get started, I know I've got to obscure said label because YouTube does not like me to have alcohol labels on. But before we get started tonight, I know we normally close it out with a toast, but let's start it out with a toast tonight. And I want to raise one. Yes, I mean, probably tell from the partial label what I'm drinking. I want to raise one for all the mothers in the audience, for my wife included, for Steve's wife included, for Robbie's significant other, for all those folks out there that those ladies out there that have had many a sleepless night to take care of their children. Have very happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there, and thank you very much for everything you do, have done, and will do for all of us idiot males. So, Slanja Ma.
Slanja.
Refreshing. Mm-hmm. Clack me a little yingling.
Yeah. Nothing like it.
So, boys, I know we've talked about Portlock, Alaska a number of times on this show. And we've also talked about it's on our bucket list that's one place we would like to take an expedition and go there. And from time to time, I just go back and pull old research and, look up things. And I started doing some deep diving in some old books and both online and in some old books. And I discovered something that I did not know about Portlock. Everybody knows the story that it was the town that Bigfoot allegedly caused to be abandoned. Town was founded in 1921 by the Alutiiq Alaskans, and it was abandoned by 1950. The last thing to go was the post office. It was a functioning cannery, had great fishing grounds, good hunting grounds, even logging. And when people started dying under mysterious circumstances, and they were seeing large hairy creatures coming down killing folks, in fact a number of folks were found crushed to death or dismembered badly, they finally abandoned the town. And that's this basic story we all know and love of the Portlock mystery. But here's where I want to kind of blow y'all's minds. It didn't just happen once. That same area has been abandoned 4 times over the last 300 years.
Mm-mm. So the story we know was that the last abandonment?
That was the last abandonment.
Okay.
Apparently there was more before the last.
Mm-hmm. Well, the first one happened in 1779. Well, of course, we all know what was going on in 1779. We had 13 little colonies were still, upstarts and trying to fight their way free of the yoke of England. So really, there was no United States as we know of. It was just 13 little colonies. But at that time, Spain already controlled a big chunk of Mexico and in California. And at that time, they decided they were going to push their way up into the Pacific Northwest. An expedition led by Ignacio Ortega and Juan Francisco de la Bodega took a Spanish.
Bidet.
Yeah, they took a Spanish expedition up there, and they made contact with the locals, and they were looking to lay claim. Although they did not establish permanent settlement at Portlock, they did put in there, and that's where they were intending to set up their forward base for that area. Within just a short while of them making landfall at Portlock, the men started getting sick. They started talking about seeing things in the trees, and they started talking about things coming into their camps at night. And before long, the crew said, "You either get us the hell out of here or we're mutinying." And the Spanish packed up all their crap and they left, never to return. Whatever they saw, the official story is the men got sick and threatened a mutiny. But for a Spanish expedition to go, you know what? We don't need this land, to just pack up their stuff and head back south, something else happened there.
Yeah, it's a little bit more than illness. I mean, yeah, I'm drawing a blank on his name now. Ponce de Leon. Half of his group were freaking trying to die of malaria, but they stayed the course.
Yeah.
I like I said, we were talking about this kind of backstage. I completely was blown away by that because I just thought it was just the one time. But to find out it was 3 times before we ever really even start talking about it, that's just that's wild. And to think about how far it goes back, I mean, I think that just kind of lends credence to what we've always said and what we've talked about. These things have been around for a lot longer than people want to. And
the Spanish were there for just a few months. They didn't even make it a year. And they folded up shop and went back south.
And they, like Steve just said, they fought with a lot of hardships on every expedition they ever went on. So for them to pull up stakes after a month, that had to. Well, and we've talked about it with the Vikings, though.
Yeah.
For things to run the Vikings off the Skraelings, I mean, that says something about it.
I mean, the Spanish conquistadors, they damn near genocided the entire Mayan and Aztec civilization.
And we know from their escapades in other parts of the world, they weren't afraid of anything. But whatever was making the men sick, it was scaring them bad enough they threatened a mutiny.
Yeah.
So, just like we did the other night, playing devil's advocate. You know how I feel about the infrasound thing. I think a lot of it is the adrenaline dump of PNS backlash. But maybe there is a little bit more to the infrasound thing than what we've. I mean, because the book that me and you've been talking about, that I've been reading, he lays a real heavy into that. And there's one line in that book where it says, "Well, it's real easy to catch the deer if a deer is so messed up it don't know where to run."
Yeah.
And we know that tigers use it to distort their prey. And
it's been said that some people, when they're affected by Bigfoot and infrasound, that they get sick. They become disoriented. And that could explain why some people just vanish into thin air, like in the missing 411. There's no sign of a struggle, no sign of what happened to them. They're just gone.
So, maybe there's more to it than what I've.
Well,
but when you think about it and you think about the symptoms and how they break it down, and Steve and Doc have agreed with me on this, that it is exactly like an adrenaline dump. After your body starts burning off adrenaline, it's what people describe as the exact same thing. So, I was just, that's just an adrenaline dump. It's a PNS backlash.
Yeah.
Ben, that's Janoskwa by Heath Stalkup.
Well, and to kind of add to that, like you said, you get that adrenaline dump. The thing that some of the special operators refer to as the shiver and shits. After they go into combat. And the another thing I was thinking of though is you were talking about infrasound being used basically tactically by different predators. DARPA did research several years ago into an infrasound ranged weapon for the military. A less than lethal avoidance weapon. And they had some success with it. There were stories of, some unwilling volunteers, feeling pretty sick and crapping their pants and stuff like this from the effect,
Well, infrasound could explain the sickness of the Spanish.
Well, yeah. I mean, me personally, if I saw Bigfoot, I'll be crapping my pants anyway. Wouldn't need an infrasound, but the Spanish were a little sterner stuff than me.
Yeah. Well, would you guys like to hear about the second time it was abandoned?
Of course.
Absolutely.
Well, 6 years later, in 1785, the British tried it. They tried to seize that land. An expedition led by Captain Nathaniel Portlock, the guy who gives his name to that region. Captain Nathaniel Portlock and his ship put in there and made contact with the locals. They were looking to establish trade routes. There was plenty of fish. It was a sheltered harbor. It was the perfect place for a settlement. Lo and behold, in just a matter of weeks, guess what happens? His men start getting sick. And they start seeing big, hairy things that come with the fog.
That sounds a lot.
They didn't know what they were.
That description sounds a lot like what the Vikings described them.
And with the fog.
Mm-hmm.
Well, guess what else? The British crew threatened a mutiny, and Captain Portlock had no choice but to pull up stakes and leave after about 6 months.
So they made it a couple more months than the Spaniards.
They made it just a little longer. But these guys, the English, were actually reporting seeing large, hairy, man-like figures coming in the fog. Now the information I found didn't say whether or not any of their people went missing, but it didn't say they didn't either.
I mean, place is already kind of getting what's the word I'm looking for? It's already getting reputation.
Yeah.
and we ain't even up to modern day times yet.
No, we are not. So the British basically renounced their claim and sailed away, not to return.
And at that time, the British wanted to be like the Romans. They wanted to control everything. So did the Spaniards.
Said there was just the land was too harsh and unforgiving, and they pulled up stakes and they left. So flash forward to 1867. In 1867, a group of Inuit called the Sugpiaq, which were largely Siberian Inuit that came across by boat, decided to create an outpost there because it, again, sheltered harbor, fantastic fishing, plenty of timber, plenty of game. No settlements anywhere near around. Nobody settled anywhere near that point on that peninsula. So the Sugpiaq tried it. The Sugpiaq lasted a few years, but they almost immediately started telling the stories of a giant half man, half beast that would come out of the fog and carry people away. And this is the first time we hear the mention of the word Nantiinaq.
The hairy man.
The hairy man. The British didn't know what to call it. The Spanish didn't know what to call it, but the Sugpiaq did. And if they were Siberian Inuit from Russia, that means if they had a word for that thing, they had already encountered it. And that would explain another mystery a few thousand miles away in Dyatlov Pass.
Because I think we've talked about that before. That's not really, as the crow flies, that's not really that far away from that.
It's really not. Because we got to remember the globe, as the globe curves toward the North Pole, going straight over the Arctic Circle, it's really not that far. Not as far as it would be if you went straight over land.
Well, yeah. I mean, most transatlantic flights now to the UK, for example, fly over the North Pole.
Yeah.
You don't do the whole, Spirit of St. Louis route.
And, a lot of people don't think about it, but there are places in Russia that you can walk to from Alaska. So you can walk to Russia from the United States in certain places. I mean, it's like, what, 5-10 miles?
Mm-hmm.
So
Casey's right. I think there are places in the world where the land is just bad. And I think Moon Valley is one of those places.
LBL.
The LBL is another one of those. Even the natives before that land was settled said that ground was cursed.
Mm-hmm. I think the Cherokee name for that land is cursed land or cursed water or something like that, isn't it?
Something like that.
Well, and another thing to consider too. I mean, there's been some recent research about this electrogeography that you see where, like, near fault lines, there's a lot of geologic activity. The Earth's magnetic field is more powerful there because the magma is closer to the surface, and there's times where it interacts with the sun's magnetic field, and that's where they're explaining some of these things, like those ghost lights, and
Mm-hmm.
some of the lights you see during earthquakes and the fog that comes out of earthquakes and things like this. Alaska's coastline's in the Ring of Fire. It's just the eastern part of it. So, God knows what that could be doing. Even if there are no actual big hairy men running around there, there could be a whole bunch of supernatural feeling, paranormal kind of stuff going on.
Well, I mean, when you start thinking of, and it was always strange when we just thought it was just this one time that we knew about from the Alaskan natives. But when you start adding all these others that pretty much were identical, however many years apart, that kind of makes you start thinking, well, maybe there's more to it than it being just a Bigfoot species that didn't want people around there.
Mm.
Maybe there's other things that are at play.
Ryan says, can it be that Portlock was just a case of strychnine poisoning? Strychnine poisoning causes fear or apprehension, maybe even hallucination if the water was compromised. Maybe that might explain the first ones, but it certainly doesn't explain the more modern ones when they brought, expeditions when they brought in their own water. I think that's a possibility for some of, like, the sickness or the hallucinations, but there are too many documented cases of people being torn apart for that to just be a hallucination.
And didn't somebody get a big heavy piece of equipment or machinery turned over on top of them?
Yeah, he got an entire piece of farming equipment dropped on him that people couldn't lift.
That's a hell of a hallucination if that's what caused that.
No kidding.
Well, and it is common for there to be, like, group hallucinations, mass hysteria, but it has to be limited to a common event. You wouldn't have an event that happened 100 years earlier causing a mass hallucination for somebody 100 years
later.
Yeah, especially two groups that had no contact that are talking about the same thing.
Right, different cultural backgrounds. If the Spanish and the British and the natives were all in the same town at the same time with the same event going on, potentially they could have that kind of bit. The common, without the common culture.
The Sugpiaq abandoned the area as well. They lived there for several years, and they talked about the Nantiinaq coming in and taking their people, and they left the area. There's still a lot of Sugpiaq people in Alaska, but they are nowhere near that peninsula. They headed up past Anchorage and up farther north along the coast, but they did not stay in the Portlock area.
Well, I mean, it kind of lends to what we've said about the Alaska area. If you want to, most, and I would say probably at least 85 to 90% of your really bad encounters, your deadly encounters, your encounters where people were, let's say they were just lucky to get out of it, or up, that far north in places like that. Because we're, and I know what people say about it, but still, let's look at the Todd Sanders thing. We're in relation to this. How far? I know it was in Canada somewhere, but we're in relation. How far away would where he was having his encounters? Would it be from where we're talking about? I mean, it would still be up in that same like parallel or whatever you're talking about, right? To where,
Yeah, his were in British Columbia, weren't they?
Yeah. So
that borders Alaska.
So
Yeah.
it kind of gives credence to what we've been saying, that the further north you go, the more
aggressive these things get.
More aggressive. I started to say vicious, but I didn't really want to say vicious. But yes, definitely more aggressive encounters.
And with colder climates, they've got to have a higher protein intake. They can't just exist on roots and berries.
Well, and like we've always said, look in nature to verify this. Brown bears, in Alaska are far more carnivorous than brown bears in the lower 48.
Right.
Brown bears in the lower 48, grizzlies, things like that. Yeah, they eat meat, but they also eat berries and things like that. Up in Alaska and places like that, they're almost strictly carnivorous.
Mm-hmm.
So
Wyatt asked if there were any ley lines that intersected near Portlock, and I looked it up and it said there are no ley lines that intersect anywhere on or near the Kenai Peninsula. So no ley lines.
That's a good question, though.
It's a good question. I didn't know the answer to it, so I had to look it up real quick. Well, in 1921, it was officially listed as a settlement, and that's when the Alutiiq Alaskans, the Alutiiq tribe, came in and started forming what we now know as Portlock, Alaska. Sheltered harbor, good fishing, plenty of timber to construct with. They built a thriving village, and at this time, it lasted for almost 30 years. Actually, right at 30 years, 1921 to 1951. 51 is when the post office finally closed. But for 30 years, they lived there. And during the entire time, there were sightings of this big hairy creature that came in the dark or came in the fog. And at first, Portlock took it very seriously. When they first created the town, they had a very strict curfew. Nobody goes up in the woods by themselves. Everybody's inside by dark. They had a very strict enforced curfew with heavily armed guards that patrolled the town. They had a cannery. They were shipping canned fish all over the place, all over the customers to the south. They were, to the lower 48. They were sending canned goods all over the world. So there's plenty of fishing, there was plenty of wood, and this was not a small town. It grew to be several hundred people, which is a pretty good sized village in Alaska.
Oh, yeah.
So this was a thriving village. But after a few years, they started getting a little lax. People started going out after curfew. People started going up in the woods to hunt to supplement their diets, and that's when people started disappearing. And once it started, even when they re-implemented the curfew, it kept happening. The creatures kept coming. The word Nantiinaq was a daily occurrence. People were reporting, going up in the woods and not returning. They were reporting, there was one guy, let's see, what was his name? Got it written down. Where did I put it? Sorry. Okay, in 1931, a guy named Andrew Kamluck, who was a logger, was brutally killed by having his head crushed and his dog sled team ripped apart. The team was literally pulled apart. And They believe he was on his sled when he was attacked, but the sled was like 30 yards away that had been picked up and thrown.
Impressive.
That dude's head was crushed. And these were people that were used to bears, used to all the animals that Alaska had to deal with, but they couldn't identify what killed him. They said there were no claw marks or teeth marks like there would be from a wolf or a bear. This guy's head was just crushed.
And I think, probably the only reason that they lasted as long as they did is because they were native and they took it so seriously at first and followed, I'm sure there's, because, I know you've watched that same thing that Small Town Monsters did that I've watched. I think that wasn't that the one that Larry Baxter was on.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they had to get the blessing of the village elders to go up there, and some of them started getting sick and all that stuff. But I'm sure that there were very strict policies or rules or things that they had to, that were set down by the elders that they had to do. And always happens, people just, well, it's fine now. We've been here 30 years and nothing's ever happened. So,
Well, and additionally, too, the 20th century group would have had the advent of repeating rifles.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little easier to defend yourself against a gigantic carnivore when you don't have to take 30 seconds to load your next shot. While
muskets versus lever action's a whole different animal.
Yeah.
Well, the same year that Andrew Kamluck was killed, a guy named Tom Larson spotted one of the creatures that he identified as a Nantiinaq. It was coming down out of the mountains and into the town. He was out hunting, and he spotted the creature, and it disappeared into the woods. He later ended up shooting a moose, and before he could get to the moose to claim the kill, he found these tracks of the Nantiinaq, these giant bear, what looked to be humanoid tracks, bear tracks in the snow, leading up to where the moose fell, and then only one set of tracks leading away going up the mountain. It picked up his moose and carried it off.
Yeah, picked up the moose.
That's a decent payload for a bear to carry away.
That's a decent payload for a truck.
A small adult moose is going to be over 1,000 pounds.
Yeah, you ain't packing that out Iron Man style.
Yeah. So what shall I know what I think? What do you think, Steve?
I think that there is enough unexplainable that you have to leave the option open for something like Bigfoot. I am very willing to accept the fact that there's probably some tainted water up there. We know that permafrost can hold on to some pretty gnarly water contaminants and things like that. It is very possible that some of the folks that were up there were completely tripping balls. But it didn't explain everything away. You don't hallucinate a person. A person doesn't hallucinate themselves getting dismembered and scattered to the wind.
Right. That's not a hallucination.
A person hallucinating doesn't carry away a 1-ton mustelid, in the time it takes a person to get to it on foot. There's too much. There's more to it than that.
From 1921 to 1951, when the town was finally, the post office closed and the town was finally listed as abandoned, over 36 people went missing and no trace found. 36 people gone. That's not counting the bodies they found and were able to identify. 36 people just gone. Some reports say it may even be closer to 100.
And here's the thing about that. Like you said, Steve, there's probably some gnarly stuff in that permafrost. And you can probably, the earlier, like the Spanish and the British that were up there earlier before the advent of good antibiotics and good water purification and things like that, you could probably attribute some of that to that. But the modern stuff, you got to look at it and say, okay, they probably had some type of, water filtration and water treatment, even though they were more or less a primitive Alaskan tribe. They still probably had a lot more preparation for stuff like that than these earlier things were. But still, they're all three seeing and experiencing the exact same thing. And
I'd be happy to accept that every group of them had diarrhea. Absolutely. Yeah. Every group of them had fevers. After enough time of diarrhea and fevers, I think people accept that every group of them said, we're leaving. Either you're with us or you're against us. But yeah, like you said, the other stuff, it's like, I put it on the same, my feelings on it being the agnostic of the group. I put it on the same footing as I do, my encounter, with you guys down at that old campground. Did I, have a Bigfoot walk up and introduce himself to me? No. But I saw footprints that I couldn't explain. I saw weird things done with animal carcasses that I couldn't explain. I am open to the possibility that it's quite probable it was a cryptid that did that. And I am 100% convinced, and I'm glad I didn't stick around any longer. I put in the same footing there. I'm one of those, not that I want a body, but I want, reliable visuals, DNA, this kind of thing to say, oh yeah, that's exactly what it was. But yeah, I can't explain it away any other way. I mean, the moose thing is the most telling for me. Well, even the dog sleds for that matter. I mean, there are reports of sledders being pinned under their sleds because they're that heavy. It being chucked someplace.
And the entire dog team ripped to pieces. Not fed on, ripped to pieces.
But right. Think of Combs Ferry when you talk about stuff being chucked. Think of the size of that table,
picnic table,
or the picnic tabletop, where it was at versus the rest of the table, and how. I mean, we're talking a freaking chunk of concrete that's that thick, probably. Because Wyatt's got a picture of me standing on top of it. I'm not a small guy, but I looked small standing on top of that chunk of concrete.
Well, the group of us, we had 8 to 9 big rednecks down there. We weren't carrying one of them tabletops.
Oh, we weren't going to
budget.
No.
At 6 foot and 250, I was damn near run to the litter. Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely enough to make your hair perk up, and you're like, okay, there's more to the story. It's interesting that you had that Russian connection. As the Russian people as a whole aren't real good about sharing data on anything.
Right.
They're unlikely to tell you what they had for dinner unless you manage to spy it out of them. The fact that
this
they
is
had similar type encounters to those Siberian encounters. This
is no different than what we've talked about the range of these creatures, the home range, or migration, whatever you want to call it. If you want to call it a home range, you want to call it they migrate or whatever. We've talked about this extensively over multiple shows about how much of a range creatures, especially if they're in a group of 10 to 15 in a family group, how big of a range they would have to survive. Because they couldn't stay in one spot because they would just totally decimate the entire area of everything. So they have to move. So when you start looking at the things that happened in Portlock and Port Chatham, and then compare it to stuff that happened at Dyatlov Pass and all these other places, it's probably the same creatures, just in a migratory pattern.
You want to hear something even creepier about that town?
Sure.
Okay, the postmaster in charge of the post office was not allowed by law to abandon the town until they closed the post office. He petitioned for years to let him close that post office down, and they kept telling him no until 1951. For the whole time he was asking to be taken off that peninsula, he would spend every night inside the post office with barricades built over the entrances, sitting next to the fireplace, the wood stove, sitting next to the fireplace in his rocking chair, facing the door with a loaded gun while something walked around the post office all night.
Mhm.
Yeah, and he was just hallucinating all this stuff.
Yeah, every night he barricaded himself in the post office.
Your range comment does bring some interesting ideas here, though, Robbie. We're accepting the fact that the Alaskan big Alaskan mammals are mostly carnivorous. When it's 20 below outside, you ain't finding blackberries, so polar bears eat nothing but meat. Northern brown bears eat a very high proportion of meat. I remember one of the zookeepers here at the local zoo telling me that a typical African lion takes a minimum of 30 to 40 pounds of protein a day. So, they're feeding this, they got a beautiful female African lion. She's probably 700 pounds. This bitch is getting like 3 or 4 porterhouses a day. Okay, let's go the tinfoil into things and say that this is a 12 to 15 foot Bigfoot, like some people have reported. That thing would probably, have a diet of, 2 to 3 DAs a day. You're not finding that in muskrats in the woods.
Right.
You could have enough rats to make the Pied Piper happy and not get enough protein off of them.
45. If I get up that way, I'm going to look for what's left of the old post office and take a look at it.
Yep, that's still on the bucket list for us to get up there.
Yes, it is.
But and now here's something too. Obviously, I would say probably part of their, and by there I mean the Bigfoot creatures, part of their diet would be fish.
Mm-hmm.
So who's to say that the first 30 years that they were there, everything was all fine and dandy, and all of a sudden people start bringing way more fish out of the area than could support the people and the Bigfoots, and the Bigfoots get pissed off and say, okay,
If you're going to take away our food source, you're going to be the replacement.
Yeah.
Well, either that or even the fact that it's a canning facility, so it's a concentration of fish. They just set up Uber Eats.
Exactly. So, and it could be a combination of all that stuff. It could be a combination of everything was fine for a minute because there was kind of a symbiotic relationship at first because the natives respected everything at first and did what they were supposed to do, but then they may have started taking more fish than, people get greedy. We know that. You said at DA, they were supplying fish for, a lot of markets. Money starts coming in. Hey, we bring in more fish, we get more money, so they start taking more fish than what they were taking. It disrupts the ecosystem. It takes away from all the other predators. All the other predators, natural predators, have to start looking for other things. But then the people start saying, okay, well, we got to, we're bringing in more fish. We got more people here. We got to feed more people. So we've got to break this curfew stuff, and we got to start going in the woods and taking more moose and taking more deer and elk and stuff like that, whatever the case may be. So the people start taking more from the ecosystem than what they had been for the first 30 years. They've disrupted everything. That trips the hammer that ends up causing what happened.
One of the articles I read said that the whole Nantiinaq thing was just a legend, and the actual reason why Portlock was abandoned was because the completion of Alaskan, that major Alaskan highway that went all the way to Anchorage. Much like Route 66, they claimed that that highway allowed people to bypass that area, and they could go on to Anchorage at a much more rapid pace. And just like with Route 66, these little towns along the way just died because of Route 66 moving to I-44. Okay, that would make a certain amount of sense until you take into the account that there is no road that runs through the Kenai Peninsula. Not one. There has never been a road to Portlock, Alaska. The only way to get there is by sea. So why would the addition of a highway a couple 100 miles away change that at all?
Well, and typically highways don't tend to run, out into the water where the fishing and stuff would be done. I mean, yeah, they can go to the ports and whatnot, but yeah.
I mean,
In 1990, a paramedic from Anchorage was called to a prison not far from Anchorage. They had an inmate out there that was in cardiac arrest. The paramedic team goes out, they assess the guy, they start stabilizing him, and they decided they've got to take him back to a hospital in Anchorage. They don't have the facilities at the prison to take care of him. So while they're loading him up, they're trying to keep the guy calm because he's an older guy. He's a Native American from the area, and the paramedics talking to him, trying to keep him calm for the ride while they're getting a guard ready to transport with them and everything. As it's for those of you who have not been involved in the process, transporting an inmate that is a federal prisoner or a prisoner from a correctional facility is a pretty major undertaking. You can't just throw them in the ambulance and take them like you would a normal person. There's got to be an officer present. You've got to have an escort. You've got to have, especially if it's a high risk inmate, there'll be more than one officer going. So while this whole process is going and they're going to transport this guy, this paramedic is doing his best to keep this guy calm. And the guy happened to mention that the inmate happened to mention that he lived in the Kenai Peninsula when he was young. And the paramedic said, "Oh, really? A friend of mine and I went hunting back out on the Kenai Peninsula, but we won't go back. We had a bad experience." And the guy, before he died, grabs the paramedic and said, "You've seen it then. You've seen the Nantiinaq."
See, this just like I've said many times before. I said it on my interview with Nantiinaq. How hard would it be to keep this going if this was just a hoax?
Yeah, it'd take a worldwide global conspiracy to keep the legend going if it was just a hoax.
And stuff like that. That's stories like that. Just the minute details in that people are not just going to make stuff like that up. I mean, who would think to make up the story of a federal prisoner that is having a heart attack or whatever and has got to go, and all of a sudden him and this guy have this. That's not a story. I mean, that's just details and too far-fetched of a story to just make up. It's
Right.
got to be true, because you don't make. If you were going to make that story up, you would say, "Oh, well, this whole hunter meets this guy who's talking about this," and you're not going to say that it was a federal prisoner that was about to die and he was talking to a CO that was that was escorting him to the hospital before he died. That's just too detailed.
Well,
I don't. Maybe there is somebody that's creative enough to think of it that way, but I don't think that that would be the story that they would come up with to substantiate this.
how about this? In 1985, 3 guys went hunting, put in a shore at the old Portlock. 3 guys were going to go bear hunting up on the Kenai Peninsula. They found their boat, they found their dog, but they never found any trace of the 3 hunters.
So I'm saying, when you start breaking things down to brass tacks, it takes more to believe that that it's a hoax than it does to believe that they're real. I mean,
Another good story from the Portlock area. You're going to like this one, Robbie. A guy decides he's going to go hunting on the Kenai Peninsula near Portlock. Okay. But he's heard the stories, and he's not going to make the mistake of going up there and staying after dark. So he takes his boat. He's got a boat that he can sleep on, and he anchors the boat in the harbor off of Portlock. And he takes a little rowboat to shore, hunts for the day, loads back up in the boat, goes back to the boat out in the middle. Okay. Staying well away from shore. It's deep water, it's cold. Okay. This goes well for him for 4 or 5 days. He's getting quite a bit of game. He's going to bring the hides back and sell them. He's doing well. Okay. During the night, on like the 4th or 5th night he was there, he was asleep, and he felt the boat shift and heard his dog go nuts. And a large, like 8-foot tall, hairy creature climbed out of the water and onto his boat, killed his dog, and attacked him. He managed to get his gun and shoot it a couple of times, and it dove back in the water and didn't resurface. So he fires up the boat and gets the hell out of there. Okay. He makes it back to Anchorage, bleeding heavily. He's fucked up. Makes it back to Anchorage, pulls up to the dock and yells for help. They come over and grab the guy, and they say, "What happened?" And they called for an ambulance. And they said, "What happened?" He said, he relays that story. "I was hunting off of Portlock. This hairy creature came aboard the boat and attacked me. It killed my dog. I shot it a few times, but I know I didn't kill it. It dove in the water and it swam away." And he died died from his injuries before they could get him to the hospital.
see, there again, that's not
on the note of people dying too. I was distracted by my dog having a damn fit. When you were talking about the elder Native American man dying and telling, related to the Nantiinaq, to the medic.
Yeah, he was an Alutiiq tribesman.
I have been with many elderly people when they died. There were times I was the only one in the room. They talk about family. They talk about things they never got to do, that trip they didn't get to take. They talk about how they're going to be joining their departed family member, wife or whatever. They don't make up a boogeyman story and tell it to a total stranger.
Right.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. That's not something that, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense for, I don't know. I think it takes more faith to believe that these things are a hoax than it does to believe they're real.
Well, my thought is, if we do go to Portlock, we should probably stay on a boat. I don't think we should camp on the shore.
Oh, I 100% agree with that.
You're going to need a bigger boat.
Okay. 1992. Two hunters go into Portlock, looking for moose. Okay. One hunter splits off from the other one, going to check tracks, and the other hunter hears all hell break loose from a few hundred yards away. Screams, gunshots, roars. By the time he gets over there, the only thing he finds is the guy's rifle embedded in a tree and the signs of a fight. Never found the guy. Now, if that'd been a bear, there would have been pieces of that dude and blood everywhere. But he didn't find a single trace of the dude.
And I doubt very seriously the rifle would have been embedded in a tree.
Yeah, the bear would have just smacked it out of the way and eat the guy.
Well, and I would always lodge my long arm gun in a tree if I'm going to go fight a bear. Because it works best when you do that.
Yeah, exactly. That's how all guns work, right?
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's how you keep them from running away and shooting a place up on you.
This causes shrapnel. You jam the barrel into the tree and pull the trigger, and the tree explodes, and wood shrapnel goes everywhere. And
must have been an AR.
Got a squid load of
how
tree.
much damage an AR does.
yeah.
Squid load of tree.
Okay. Now we flash forward to just a few years ago, back in 2021. How many of you guys watched the show Alaskan Killer Bigfoot? I watched it.
See it.
Yeah. Why be a man? Fight with your fists. Come on, fight like a man.
Buster Pitt says, I bet Woodwalkers and Coonbo would go. Hell yeah. We already told the Woodwalkers if we can pull off an expedition, they're invited. I would definitely bring Coonbo along. But guess
Well,
what?
no, I'd be willing to sleep on the boat thing, providing it's like a military grade submarine, and I can have 6 inches of steel and be submerged.
But Alaskan Killer Bigfoot lasted one season. And it was pretty good. It was a little cheesy. It was a little hokey. They did some stuff. I was like, oh, okay, this is weird. But for the most part, exploring that area and looking at the ruins and finding tracks, it was an interesting show. I don't know that I buy 100% everything they were saying, but it was an interesting show. Do you know why it only lasted one season?
Probably because they found something they shouldn't have found. And
No. Something happened that they have all had to sign non-disclosure agreements with. Something happened, and the production company, could not insure it anymore because of it. They could not get an insurance policy to cover the production. The insurance companies were like, nope, we're not doing it.
I mean, that sounds like somebody either got really bad injured or
I can't find anything that says exactly why. Just that people that will talk only as much to say I signed an NDA. I can't tell you anything.
I mean, that's for an insurance company to, because think about the Mythbusters. If you watch some of the behind the scenes stuff on that, there's certain episodes that they couldn't do the things that they wanted to do because their insurance company wouldn't cover it because there was such a risk of great bodily harm.
Right. Buster Pitt said, what happened? And do you know that for a fact? I don't know that I could say I know it for a fact, but I found multiple corroborating stories from different people that said the same thing. So I tend to think that's what happened, but I don't know what the event was. Nothing I've been able to find says why that they lost their insurance because of an incident.
And that's like I said, that.
Iowa Wolf says, how long does an NDA last? It varies. It depends on the NDA. Some, for example, if you have a high-level security clearance in the military, that lasts a lifetime.
Yeah, individual NDA, there's no this NDA is good for everything and lasts this. Every NDA is individually written by whatever attorney and company have made it up. And it's, it can be 6 months. It can be 6 years. It can be 6 days. It's just whatever.
Well, I don't know exactly what happened. But I found 4 different accounts where someone had spoken to somebody that worked on the crew, not the cast. Someone had spoken to somebody that worked on the crew filming Alaskan Killer Bigfoot. They're like, look, we can't talk about it. We signed a very, very legally binding NDA. And all I can tell you is bad enough. We lost our insurance and couldn't get it back. So, and we didn't hear about any of the cast or crew dying. That would have made the papers.
So that tells me it's probably something that it was something so dangerous that the insurance company was like, nah, we ain't covering you because there's such a chance of, it's like I said, with the Mythbusters, certain episodes they wanted to do that the insurance company was like, no, somebody could die doing this and we're not going to cover it because somebody could die.
Here's my thought. If somebody had gone missing up on that during the production, if somebody had gotten grabbed and went missing up in the woods, they could not have covered that up. They would have had to have reported them missing. The authorities would have got involved with a manhunt. But if somebody nearly got grabbed,
Yeah, and that could be
and multiple people saw it, they would have, the production team would have been like, "Screw this, we are out. This just got real. It's in a TV show anymore."
Yeah, your SAG
Dr.
membership
45,
isn't
I
worth
don't
that.
know. I assume it was with the production company.
Well, and you made me think about something when you mentioned security clearance. Let's let's assume for argument's sake that there really is a military unit, something along the lines of like the Wild Hunt, and something did happen there. I would guarantee you that the officer in charge of whatever unit showed up would classify whatever the hell happened. It would be one
Someone
of those.
mentioned,
We talk
Vicky
about it.
Dennison says, "I thought they pulled him out because of the grizzly bears." The article I read said there hasn't been a grizzly bear sighting on the lower Kenai Peninsula in like 50 years. But there are grizzly just across the bay on the other peninsula. So I don't think it had anything to do with grizzly bears.
but that's very well what they probably would say.
Oh, yeah, that'd be absolutely what they would say to
Yeah.
avoid admitting something.
Yeah, because I mean, how many times have we said it? People are so conditioned that when they see the black blur running across the field, oh, it's a black bear, black bear, black bear. And I said this to Josh last night when I was on his show or doing the interview with him. If that was not, just think about this for a second. If that was not so ingrained in our culture, our lore, our every bit that these things don't exist. What you saw was a black bear, black bear, black bear, black bear. That's what everybody defaults to. If that was not in the equation, if people were free to think of whatever they wanted to think, how many of these sightings, or what would the number of sightings of people actually saying it was Bigfoot or something like that be? If it was a black bear, the default answer was not in the vernacular. What would the
Robert E., I
number of
read that
sightings?
article too. There's been multiple sightings of grizzlies in northern Missouri.
I think sightings that people actually say I saw a Bigfoot would probably almost double if it was not such an ingrained thing of, oh, it was a black bear. I saw a black bear. It's a black bear. It's a black bear.
Well, it's like those weird disappearances where you end up finding dismemberments and stuff in like the national forest and stuff like that. Oh, it's an animal attack. It's always an animal attack. Yeah.
That's
Well,
what I'm
here's
saying.
the thing.
We're so
We
ingrained
got
with this.
We've got a lot of these shows like Finding Bigfoot and Expedition Bigfoot and Mountain Monsters. We've got all these shows, but and I'm not trying to knock any of these shows. These shows are out to get ratings. That's just the way it is. These shows are put on prime time on these different networks so they can sell advertising and they can make money off the show. That's what they're there for. So do they play a little fast and loose sometimes? Especially Mountain Monsters. That one's a little hokey. Come on now. But here's the thing. Okay, here's the thing. If any of these shows actually found something, I guarantee you they would get a very quiet talking to and said, "You're not airing this." As long as it looks like there's a bunch of idiots out there, beating on trees and screaming for Bigfoot, the government's all well and good with that. But when they start actually bringing out footage, something will change. The show will go off the air. Hey, Dr. 45, thank you, brother. Appreciate that.
Thank you, man. Well, let's be honest. I mean, there's the chance of any of these. The three of us have been out in the field together.
Mhm.
We've been out and we know how we handle stuff. We know what we've seen. We know what we found. Compare what we've done to even to finding Bigfoot, which Pat tries to pass herself off as really serious. Compare how we do it to them. How many big glaring differences can you see with the way we handle stuff versus the way they handle stuff?
Well, first off, every time we hear a coyote, we don't go, "Hear that? That's a Bigfoot." It's a
That's what
coyote.
I'm saying. That's what I'm
Odds are
saying.
good it's a coyote.
We're not out there for ratings, number one. But,
Right.
yeah, so you can't even really compare us to like Mountain Monsters. That show was strictly 100% for ratings. You can't look at that show and take it. If anybody takes that show seriously, I'm sorry. I will preface this comment by saying I'm sorry if anybody out there takes this show seriously. But you can't take that show. You maybe could take Finding Bigfoot seriously. What's the other one? Russell Acord.
Expedition Bigfoot.
That one right there.
Of the group, Expedition Bigfoot's probably the best.
Yes, that is, in my opinion, that's the most legit and down to earth and real one there is. The rest of them, and the bottom of the totem pole is Mountain Monsters and Alaskan Monsters. Those two are those are strictly entertainment cash cows. So all they're just there to cash in on the cryptid field. And
it's like the vast majority of those survival shows, with the exception of maybe Les Stroud's show. You know, Man versus Wild ain't teaching you shit about survival. The scenarios they're setting up is completely realistic. You're not diving off of waterfalls and jumping on a moving trains for survival. You know, you got a bigger chance of killing yourself than getting any survival out of it. But it's got great ratings. You know,
and that's the thing, Steve. Look at 9 seasons of Mountain Monsters, or 8 seasons rather. That's what everybody's clamoring for now, is season 9. 8 seasons of that. 8 seasons of these guys out there making these traps out of scrap that they find in the scrap yard. And I mean, it is what it is. I mean, it's just cheap entertainment. So,
well,
but anyway,
think about it too. If you've got a relatively well-funded group who has 9 years of time to work with it, you think they'd have made more progress. I mean,
that's where I was headed with that.
That's Expedition Bigfoot, the one you're thinking
our
of.
little group of nightmare hunters, for lack of a better term. I mean, if you take the 8 or 9 of us involved in that as a collective, we've gotten further than those places have.
AJ's on the right track here, I think. He said, could finding something explain the insurance drop in the NDAs we just talked about? Shadowy government agency tells insurance company, no more, censors the footage. That's entirely possible. I was thinking more like something happened and the insurance company just backed out. But AJ's theory makes as much sense as that, maybe even a bit more.
But think about it this way. If our group, our team, had the funding and the equipment that some of these other goofball shows had, what could we have done in 9 or 8 seasons?
Dude, we'd have been pulling some interesting footage. I guarantee you.
Especially if we didn't have
we had their budget.
Yeah, and if we didn't have any kind of constraints on, you can't, if you find anything, you can't show it. If this was just, if we just had somebody, some random, person that has millions of dollars that could fund this, that was not tied into the government, where we didn't have all the, the government red tape like most of these production companies and stuff have. If we just had that budget that somebody gave us and said, look, go out and do what you do, what could we have done in 8 seasons worth of funding?
Well, I mean, like I was saying, look at the evidence.
Look what we've done in, just a few trips.
But you got better footage on an outdated iPhone by accident.
Yeah.
We're not even talking state of the art. You were using my hand-me-down iPhone that I had already said, yeah, I'm done with it. So we weren't taking modern tech here.
Steve's got a great point. So you also have to take into account how many in our group are prior Leo and military, and we've all faced the worst of the worst and know how to conduct ourselves. Yeah, that's why you won't find us. You won't see like an episode of what is that Ghost Adventures show?
You're
guaranteed 2 things are going to happen in every episode of Ghost Adventures. That guy Zach is going to say, just then, at that exact moment. He uses that phrase constantly, and something's going to happen, and the bald guy's going to run over the cameraman. That's going to happen in every episode.
Yeah, and you know, the last expedition that you all did back when I was, you know, at home with a broken leg, and you were all out with the night vision goggles. You know, you had more of an encounter there, and yeah, I'm sure they were probably decent nogs, but you know, we aren't talking about DARPA issued shit that we were playing with
Yeah,
out
no
there.
kidding.
You know, for all we know, it's, you know, night vision bought off of Timu, uh, and you know, and that's a handful of trips. I mean, if you take every encounter that any of our little Nightmare Hunter group did, there's not enough for a half a season of television, and there was that much. You know, even if you do a whole bunch of B reel and you know, whatnot, there's, I don't know. I just struggle to see that something funded like that with that many people, that many cameras would have that little evidence. But
Robbie, we
you know,
lost you. Robbie, we lost you. I can't hear you.
yeah.
Robbie's got a reboot. The Gremlins got him
No,
again.
Steve Patton, you know, made a very good point though. You know, we might have had a little bit less if we had, you know, the men in black telling us, yeah, what you thought you saw, you didn't see.
Yeah, you didn't see that.
It was a black bear. Pay no attention to the unmarked van.
Yeah. You you know that money you make? That would be a real shame if something were to happen to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's back. Say something, Robbie.
Hey,
Oh, yep, we can hear him. All right.
Here, I'm going to put my ugly mug back down on the bottom here.
but what I was saying when you said you couldn't hear me, that's what I'm saying. The government doesn't want anybody to find anything. That's why they give money to these goofballs like, you know, mountain monsters, Alaskan monsters, things like that, because they know they're not going to get. They know that Willie and Wild Bill and Buck and all that, they're not going to get out there and find anything. At least not on purpose anyway. Maybe by accident. They're not going to give money to people like us because they know we're serious about it and they know we're going to get out there and we're going to do it the right way. But they don't want the truth out there.
They don't want us to, at the end of the evening, go, we didn't find anything. They want someone that's always going to find something and always make it an entertainment.
Well,
Yeah.
and with all the with all the, you know, ex-military, ex-Leos and stuff you all got there, you're also the kind of group that if you had some interesting evidence, you know, that was somewhat damning or revealing, and then somebody, a shouty person stepped in and said, yeah, you can't publish that, the vast majority of y'all would just be like, fuck all, we're going to do it anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
No. What you going to do about it, Junior?
That's right.
Yeah.
No, you going to threaten me? Get in the back of the line. It goes around the building.
Yeah.
The people who've threatened me already in my career.
Exactly.
But, you know, not to sound like a broken record, but I just think that when you start looking at all this stuff, you start connecting all these dots of all the shows that are out there that we've talked about time and time again of how stupid they are. There's a reason those shows are the ones that you see. I mean, Bobo may be a great guy in person. I've never met him in person. But somebody's sitting there saying, oh, Squatch likes bacon. I know Squatch likes bacon. How the hell do you know Sasquatch like bacon? You don't.
Everybody likes bacon.
But
Bacon. Come on now.
Well, I agree. Everybody likes bacon. We don't know that Sasquatch likes bacon. We assume that, but the point
I've
is,
yet to meet a hairy man who doesn't like bacon.
but my point is, for somebody to sit there and say
Are you
stuff
trying
like
to tell me Sasquatch is Muslim?
he might be. You never know. I mean, stranger things have happened.
Well, he's eating long pork.
There you go. See,
It's kosher.
the other white meat.
Yeah, the other white meat. There you go.
But the point is that you see all these shows out there with these people who claim to be, like we've said, they claim to be experts, and they know everything there is to know about them. But yet they have found less in 8, 9, 10, 12, 14 seasons of these shows than we found in 2 or 3 times going out. And I think Steve hit the nail on the head. They're not supposed to. They're not the ones that, the government is not going to come to people like us and say, okay, because the government already knows what's going on. They already know what's out there. And they put these goofballs out there in front of the public eye and paint them as experts. Oh, well, look, they're out there finding them. They're looking for them. This is the Ames team, Appalachian investigators of mysterious sightings. They've got an official name.
Yeah.
I mean, but there's people that buy into that. That's what's bad about it.
Well, and yeah, I'm picturing, what we were going to say here, Major Daniel Clark walking up to LT and going, yeah, what you just saw here, it didn't happen, and you're not going to say anything about it. That's how it's going to go down. I can see him looking over at him over his glasses and going, it's cute you think that.
I can see Jenkins saying that too. Like,
I totally can.
yeah. Yeah. It's really, really funny that you think that's going to happen, but
Or as my friend Rick would always say, it's cute. It's cute you had that opinion there, sweet cheeks.
just reaches over and pats him on the shoulder and goes, yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah, I just, I think part of the reason I find, the DA-verse book so entertaining is the fact that it's the same thing I feel about, stuff like, Mayberry's Joe Ledger series. It's believable enough that there's probably a group like that does that.
Well, there's that story that keeps resurfacing about a Navy SEAL team that was it North or South Carolina, Robbie?
North Carolina.
Went into North Carolina because a family had been taken by a group of rogue Bigfoot. And the SEALs didn't take it seriously until they made first contact with one. And after several days, it killed one of there was like 7 of the creatures, killed one of the SEALs. And by the time they put them all down, they found numerous bodies in a cave where these things were living. And it was pretty bad. And that story just keeps resurfacing. I don't think it's ever really been debunked either. It'll go away for a while, then it pops back up.
Wow. No, I think you guys made a very good point though with the production companies and whatnot. Given those kind of resources and being in some place that is a known
Joseph, I heard it was a SEAL team.
Yeah. We're starting to see an increased activity around here for whatever reason, I personally think it's because you're looking at a border war between the Bigfoot and the Dogmen, and it's bringing everybody out. They should have seen something by now.
Larry Berlin says new team name, the Geriatric Squatch Squad.
So yeah, I was thinking along the lines of Meal Team 6, but that's already been taken.
Cripples for
I resemble that remark.
Cripples for cryptids.
Yeah,
we're all crippled.
Cripples for cryptids. Oh, love it.
Ain't none of us going to be backpacking 20 miles into the deep woods anymore.
The comorbid cryptid investigation team. We could probably get a sponsor from like Pfizer. From all the. Well, that one's got high blood pressure. That one over there is diabetic, so he's taking a bunch of insulin. Yeah, I think that guy's got erectile dysfunction. We can fund these dudes.
Hey, don't forget Ozempic. There's Ozempic in there.
My Manjaro.
But let's see. The government tells them what to die.
The Gray Rangers. But, even as recent as like the last decade, there are people that have tried to go into Portlock, and the Native American elders that the land belongs to are real touchy about letting people in there anymore.
Yeah,
You've
you
got to
got to get
basically know
permission.
someone to get permission to go in, but that hasn't stopped some people from trying. Uh, it's still considered a very dangerous place. Mary Cole said, sponsored by Depends.
You read it as I was putting it up.
That's funny. Ordinarily that would have been a brown pants moment, but I was safe with my Depends.
When I go out in the field looking for cryptids, I don't have to worry about a brown pants moment anymore because I've got Depends on my side.
Extra strength.
Extra strength. Oh Lord.
Lord.
That as I would expect with us, it went down to a place it shouldn't have.
Yeah. And, eventually it's got to derail and go someplace bad.
Yeah.
I mean,
Angela Moore says, grumpy old squatchers. I'm here. I'm looking for Sasquatch. Get off my lawn.
get off my lawn, you damn Sasquatch.
We're bad. We're terrible.
We're honest. That's what it is.
Yeah. Sometimes painfully honest.
When I go squatching, I depend on my Depends to keep the brown pants moments down. We keep on going. We might could roll up a deal out of this.
Get a sponsorship.
Hey man, if they want to, want to sponsor us, we'll get us equipment.
Hey, I'm sure Depends has got some money because they got the market cornered on adult diapers. There ain't no other ones out there.
Sponsored by Depends and the AARP.
If there's money involved, I'll do the damn commercial. I'm telling you.
Well, with the exception of Steve, we're all AARP certified. Steve's the only one that ain't over 50 yet. All the rest of us are 50 plus. So
although
AARP could sponsor us and get away with it.
Since my dad and I have the same first name, I've been getting stuff from AARP for 20 years. But I'm just not a member. Obviously, I turned 49 this year, so I'm not quite there yet.
Yeah, I mean,
Rodney said, "Is Portlock located in the Alaskan Triangle?" Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
And it's funny you should mention the Alaskan Triangle because in the last 30 plus years, more than 66,000 people have gone missing in the Alaskan Triangle. The rate of missing persons per 100,000 people is about 44 to every 100,000 people in the state of Alaska. The next closest state to have that, to have the number of missing people, the next closest state is Arizona with a paltry 13 out of every 100,000. Yeah, the rate of disappearance in Alaska is 3 times higher than it is in the next closest state.
That's a lot of swamp gas and
refracting off Mars with Venus in the background, looking over at the yeah.
Well, and funny thing, I remember on a previous show, probably was last year sometime, we were talking about how these hunters, the missing 411, the hunters that typically turned up missing were the ones that took the shot.
That's my theory.
I noticed something, when you guys were telling about your last Joe Ball trip that I didn't go on, when you got when you had the engaged that group of probably Squatches, y'all were armed. At that moment in time, you guys were the third largest standing military unit in Missouri.
Pretty much.
Nobody took the shot.
No, nobody squeezed around.
You wisely chose to de-ask the AO.
And again, I want to make this absolutely clear. We have zero intention of bagging a Bigfoot or a dog man to bring it in to prove it to science. I don't want to shoot one. I will if I have to save my life or the life of somebody we're with. But I have no intention to go out and hunt one to bring it in.
I would sit down and eat a meal with one as long as I wasn't the entree. You know, I'd be happy to go like Jane Goodall with the mountain gorillas and just sit there or I guess there's chimps with her. But just to interact with these things. Of course, I do the same thing with a wild wolf if I thought I could get away with it. One of these days I'm
going
going
to
to
that
die
wolf
petting something.
sanctuary up by St. Louis.
One of these days I'm going to die petting something I shouldn't have pet. Is what's going to happen. But
or peeing on a tree is something you shouldn't pee on.
That too.
I mean, just saying, Steve.
Well, there's a gal down in Arkansas because in Arkansas it's legal to have, or at least it used to be, purebred wolves. Missouri you can have wolf dogs, but they have to have a certain percentage of domestic dog in them. And my wife at the time went down to that place, and we got to sit there and hang out with their little pack of wolves. Sat down with them as they played with us and sniffed at us, and we got to feed them, and it was the coolest thing ever. And we knew there was
wolves. I've been to the wolf sanctuary, but I don't know what it is about wolves. But if you're not careful, they will stick their tongue in your mouth. Don't know why.
Yep, they're very intrusive in that regard. The ones we had, the females, we were kind of squatted down and we wouldn't make eye contact with them. We kind of let them come to us. The females would like lay on you, and because of the stuff they eat, they have the worst damn breath. But you're like, okay, a wild wolf. I've got a gray wolf laying across my neck and letting me scratch its head. I ain't gonna move. I'm gonna deal with it. It's fun.
Did you see what Rodney said?
No, what did Rodney say?
He said two things that are interesting. One, it's a triangle. Two, it's on a peninsula. We got a little bit of experience on the peninsula thing about it, or thing. Maybe not the triangle part, but definitely the peninsula part.
KC Calloway says they don't make an all-terrain hover round. I checked. Now, KC, I beg to differ, my good sir, because when it looked like I was going to be in a wheelchair, I found this. If that ain't all-terrain, nothing is. They build them for hunters. They have pintle mounts on them.
That is an all-terrain hover round.
Yes, that is.
We need to get that sponsor team, and every one of us have one of those.
I might not break my damn leg that way.
I'm about to say, Steve wouldn't worry about breaking his leg.
Yeah, those things. The video I watched on them, they were even driving through water with them.
That's pretty awesome.
Oh, when the inevitable happens, and I am eventually in a chair, it's going to happen. I mean, just at some point, my back is going to degrade to the point where I can't walk anymore. That's what I want.
That's a jazzy chair with tank treads.
This is the advice on what Steve's allowed to pet in the woods.
Steve, I'll let you know. I'd love to go up there again. It's been a long time since I've been there. Roxanne says, would that be fast enough to run from Bigfoot? Well, if we bought the basic parts for one and then put an 11-horse Briggs and Stratton on it, I'm guessing it probably would be.
Or if he just ran over one of us.
Yeah, I don't have to outrun them. That's what I keep the 22 for.
I mean,
I was going to say, just put a couple of Tesla batteries on it. And
yeah, Harold Goodall was saying
chip.
how long does the battery last? What I was reading is you can get about 20 miles out of one before it needs recharged.
Oh, we
And
can
I would
fix
probably buy a second battery for it. Or, just like I was saying, take the electric motor off of it and put a 15 horse Briggs and Stratton outboard on it. Be gas powered. It'd be louder, but it would be quick.
that. You need to up armor that bitch.
Yeah, just a guy that would work if we only work during the day, but a lot of times we go out during the night. So solar panel probably wouldn't help too much during the.
Well, second battery though. Keep a second battery charged.
It's just getting powered off a solar panel at night.
Not at night. Iowa Wolf says mount a 22 so it's armed. I'm thinking more of a 300 blackout than a 22.
Yeah, 22 just piss them off.
Wyatt says put a 0-turn motor on it. You'd be able to get some going. Yeah, that thing would be quick.
Well, I think, Robbie, that the 22 is for you or me.
Yeah. Oh, my knee! What happened?
We can't get
Something bit me.
We can't get DA. We'll go like down in Moon Valley. We're on the low water bridge. We can't get his chair in the truck in time. I'll just meet you at the top of the valley.
Oh, don't stop for the cannibals.
Going out that way. Going back out the other side of the valley. Thank you very much.
I don't know if I'd go that way if I was in a chair like that. All them cliffs and mountains where you have boulders dropped in front of you. I don't know. It's 6-1, half dozen in the other.
There's cliffs and sketchy places on both sides of that valley.
It's just the other way is the shortest. You just got to go through.
It's shorter out that way. You got to go past the doll house and the cannibal house.
True, but if you're driving like Doc, you ain't got to worry about going past the doll house.
Good
Doc,
point.
Nope. Doc, don't you want to look? Nope.
Yeah,
Okay.
you get one Bigfoot in the water, and Doc suddenly turns into Stroker Ace.
Or the Bandit. Because he definitely did a J turn in that big SUV. He flipped that thing around. He flipped that thing around quicker than I've ever seen. Oh.
He made up his own evac. Was it evac course?
That
yeah.
He did.
I would not have thought that you could maneuver a vehicle that size on a road that was excavated like that road is in that particular area as quickly as he did and as safely and as smoothly. Not saying it was smooth, but it was smoother than it should be at the speed he was navigating it at.
Yes, he was handling the terrain quite well.
Yes. He was unassing the AO post haste. Most Ricky Tick.
Most Ricky Tick. I wonder if you could take one of those chairs and put a watertight compartment around the battery and motor and make it float.
I mean, maybe. It depends on what kind of frame it's got and, all the others. I mean, you can just about make anything into anything. Just got to have enough time, patience, and money.
There will come a day, and I will fight it tooth and nail every step of the way. But there will come a day, probably not in the distant future, probably closer than I want it to be. But I will have wheels in my future, and it's just because what's happening on my back is irreversible and inevitable. It's just going to keep getting worse. So if I count myself lucky if I got 5 more years of walking before it goes out completely, and it'll probably do it just like it went out the first time. When I was working as an officer, went to get out of bed one morning, couldn't straighten up, and it just downhill from there. And that's probably what'll happen. I'll just be fine one day and go to get out of the chair next day and not be able to walk.
Yeah, but you never know, because I mean, you thought you were really honestly, you thought you were already going to be in one at this point.
I really did.
If you've been seeing any neurosurgery besides the ones you've been seeing, you would have been in a wheelchair.
KC says, you put a man on the moon,
Yep.
DA, we can make your chair float.
Nope. I'll be
Never
right back. I
underestimate
can go
the
check
power of
something right quick.
rednecks.
Richie says, just need a few rednecks to build me one.
Yep.
Yep. I'll be right back. I go check something right quick.
Hi, brother. Larry Berlin says, does Doc have a spinner handle on his steering wheel? No, it was just regular old steering wheel.
It was a rental car, wasn't it?
But yeah, it was a rental. It was a Jeep Grand Cherokee, big white one.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember watching him climb down out of it. Looked like Neil Armstrong landing on the moon.
It was an awful big vehicle for such a little dude.
Yeah, now that I'm back on my feet and hopefully have some vacation in the near future, I definitely got to go out and enjoy some of the mass stupidity that y'all like to do.
Well, we're planning on more stupidity in the very near future.
Oh, there always is.
Robbie, you all right?
I'm good. There's going to be many, much more stupidities going on.
Damn right.
Steve would have. It would have been comical to see all of us there that night that we were at Moon Valley if Steve would have been there too.
Oh, I'm sad I missed it, but like I said, at that point, if I had been able to go, I would have not been that mobile, you know.
I just want to see what cuss words you'd threw at me that night, because like I said, I was the one that made the call that got them going. So I found the deer hide. I got the FU Robbie for that one. So with me making the wolf howl, getting it going, I just was curious what I would have.
You probably would have got an FU Robbie again.
Yeah, I just wonder what expletives would have been flung at me that night.
Just a guy. I have not heard any new information released on the Florida bear attack. Nothing.
Yeah, I would definitely have been making some very colorful references that involved your mother, a petrified camel penis, and any other thing I could think of that'd be inappropriate.
Okay, cool. I was just like, that would have been interesting to see or hear rather.
Boondock says, what call did you use? Well, we started out doing some tongue pops and didn't really get much of a response. And then Doc did some owl calls. And Robbie, you did a couple whoops, didn't you?
It was tongue pops, owl calls, whoops, and then the wolf howl.
And as soon as he did the wolf howl, we got the owl call thrown back at us. The same owl call.
And then shit went south from there.
Yeah, and then
we
brought them in.
Wow! After the wolf howl, because they went.
When
Steve
our resident living brain donor decided to, basically, scream, the enemy's battle cry.
As Steve put it, kind of went and flopped it on the table in a measuring contest. Is how they probably took it. I never said I was the smartest guy in the world.
I believe that was a challenge, and they were up to the challenge.
So were we.
Well, you and I about walked into a challenge. If Doc hadn't been on the thermal, we'd have got ourselves cut off.
Probably.
Robbie, there is something to be said for brute force and ignorance. It's been very effective. It won 2 world wars.
Hey, and DA and I both had the 2-time World War champion on our side. So
Well, and the only reason that I really even thought along that lines was how on a much less less escalated setup, I had something similar just by pissing on that tree. You know, uh, and when somebody was more informed than I was, it's like, you basically marked your territory. I'm like, yep, middle-aged obese diabetic marks territory and has a pissing contest with the dog man. Yeah, that was smart.
I mean,
No. No one's ever accused us of being the brightest bulbs in the pack.
no,
Mm-mm.
but we are the curviest spoons.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Well,
And
my
Steve,
wife's accepted the fact you can't stop me from doing dumb shit. So
Steve, I'm sure that's why I was asking what he would. That it would have been cool to have him there because I'm sure he would have flung a nice wave of expletives at me that night. You stupid!
Oh yeah, yeah. I would have as soon as Doc said, "Y'all, we're being flanked." I would have bailed the fuck out in a hurry.
This is one of the stills from Steve and I's first little foray down into Joe Bald, the night we were not expecting to get anything on camera. This is, you can see there's
We
something.
weren't filming
down the
for
tree.
that.
No, we were filming a book short. There's the actual map of the Joe Bald. There's an enhanced version of what was sticking out behind that tree.
Yeah, that went back behind the tree. Yeah, we were shooting a book intro with a 5-year-old iPhone and a flashlight. And as DA was talking, I was getting some basically B-roll, and I was just panning over the woods, and never saw anything.
This
but
is
then
about 9 feet up on that tree. You can see its hand and the shape of what looks like a dog's head.
Yeah, where the hand is what do we say was like 6.5 feet off the ground?
Yeah, about that.
And that happened to be the exact tree I pissed on earlier.
It's right here. You can actually see it in this unedited video, unedited still from the video. You can see it sticking out.
That's where the last time we were all down there. That's where we were when we headed right up in that area right there when we started hearing stuff pacing us out of there.
But yeah,
there you can see the nose, the eyes, and both ears.
So I had panned the camera right to left, getting some footage, and this was on the right to left pass, and then I went to pan it back left to right, and it ducked behind the tree. And of course, I never saw it. DA never saw it. We didn't see it at all live.
Yeah, we didn't even notice it in the video till it got pointed out to us like a year later. This is my favorite of the images because you can see the hand and the face.
And, if you just see that picture, that's one thing. But if you see the corresponding video with that and see that image move and see that hand come around the tree and then see that head move back and the hand move back and disappear, it just makes that picture right there all the more creepy. I mean, it's creepy anyway. But when you see the corresponding video that goes with it, that actually shows it moving.
How about this?
Yeah. Well, the expletives that you when that was revealed to me live on the show, thankfully we weren't monetized back then.
No kidding.
Steve let him fly, in other words.
Oh, hell yeah. Sorry, my dog is in.
He's okay. Right. He's just on the TV. Tempest was like, what was that?
My wife is out of the house tonight, dog sitting for a friend. And so essentially my wife's dog, every sound at the door, she thinks is my wife coming home. It's going to be a long night.
I'm going to play the video for everybody. It's just over a minute long. You will not hear the audio, but you should be able to see the exact tree. This is us, me and Steve, down at Joe Bald, shooting just a little promo for Lakeview Man 1. Now, when you can see my cursor on the screen, Steve's going to pan over to the trees here in just a minute. And I will try to stop it just in the right frames. Okay. Right back in here is where you need to be watching. And I'm going to change the speed on this. We're going to playback speed 0.25. That's as slow as I can play it back. Now watch this area right over here. There it is, right there. Now watch that spot right there, because you're gonna see it move. There it goes. It's ducking back behind the tree. And now it's completely gone behind the tree. You may also notice eye shine in the trees. I've noticed eye shine in it in places I hadn't noticed before when I watched it slow. You notice it's not there now. It has gone. It is not in that spot anymore.
And like DA said, he was shooting a promo for Lakeview Man, or we were shooting a promo for Lakeview Man, just because it takes place kind of in that area. And we were using a 5-year-old iPhone, and I'm not a photographer, so
yeah. We didn't go out there with the intention of trying of catching a Bigfoot or something on camera. We thought it would have been cool if we did, but we were just there shooting video for a book. You'll notice there's some eye shine in this tree over here. And then when it there it was. You just saw. I just saw the eye shine. Now when it pans back, if you look, you'll see eye shine over my shoulder behind me. I never saw that. There's the eye shine again. It was pretty high up too. Roxanne, yeah, Steve peed on that tree right before we started filming.
Yeah, my poor diabetic self was about to blow a bladder, and there's not even so much as a Johnny pot down there. So I stepped away from DA about 10 yards or so and pissed on the tree, and then we walked up out of there. So our scent was all over it. Plus, obviously I marked the tree, and
we didn't see anything. I mean, we left there and took Steve's wife and my wife on into Branson and ate dinner at, what was it? Didn't we eat at Outback?
Yeah, ate Outback. Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't see anything. We didn't even suspect anything. There's more eye shine.
Yeah, the boondock. Yeah, the insects never even quit making noises. I mean, the crickets and cicadas were having an orgy out there as far as we could tell.
Yeah, boondock. The insects never stopped. Steve was lucky it didn't reach out and grab him, Roxanne, because he peed on the tree it was looking out from behind. I don't know if it was there at that particular second, but it was there not long after.
I'm pretty sure it wasn't, because I would have thought I would have seen.
There's the eye shine behind me.
Eye shine. Yeah, I would have thought I would have seen it, but I would not be surprised if my urine drew it in. I am a type 1 diabetic, and at that time in my life, my blood sugar wasn't under the best control, so I guarantee it smelled to bring him in. Plus, we had two, moderately obese, sweating rednecks standing down there.
They were just wanting to hear about the book.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that sounds like some
There's
shit
the eye
I'd read
shine
right
back
now.
again.
Oh, did you see it blink?
Yep.
But yeah, it was like a year after it was pointed out to us. We had a dogman researcher on the show, and when we told the story, he immediately cut DA off and goes, "That was probably the worst thing you could have done." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Pissed on that tree." He goes, "When we go out on a investigation, we carry our urine out in milk jugs." And I'm like, "What?" He goes, "That's a threat display."
Oh, it's territorial, if
Never,
nothing else.
Yeah.
I never said I was smart.
Yeah, same here.
Well, we weren't there doing research. We were just shooting a video for a book. We didn't think about it.
Yeah, like I said, he was just listening about the book. He wanted to know, you know, he wanted to get the scoop before everybody else did.
Well,
You know,
considering
Vicky,
the
the only
book was
thing we
about
heard, the only
Bigfoot.
thing we heard while we were filming was insects. Ben, no, I haven't had Nick on in a while. I need to reach out and get him on the show again. It's been a hot minute. See what he's been up to lately. And that's the famous Joe Bald Dogman footage.
Yeah. And that would have been a minute and a half on episode 1 of our season. Maybe 3 minutes if you have some really cool credits.
Yep.
And I'll bring that image back up one more time. This was the image that Josh and Adam were able to extract from that grainy cell phone video. And you can see its hand and you can see its head. Is it smoking gun perfectly clear, Dogman video? No. But I think it's extremely compelling. Well, what do y'all think of that?
Well, you know what I think about it, because we actually have gone up in the woods twice
In that
from
same
that
spot.
spot, and
had action both times.
mm-hmm.
Well,
that in fact, it was right over, just over about 20 yards from that spot where the term Robbie Wrangler got coined.
Well, and think about now, with that being a decommissioned campsite, there's probably not as much human activity down there. You're going to have the occasional meth heads and the teenagers that are wrestling. So let's think at it from the animal perspective. Okay, I put an unusual substance for them on that tree, lured them in. While they're there, they picked up my scent and DA's. So then DA comes down there later with Robbie. Okay, so now a familiar scent has returned.
Mm-hmm.
And at least Robbie's scent. Okay,
well, the night I took Doc down there, it was
so,
just me and Doc and Annette. Again, we had something chasing us in the woods.
Well, in your biggest encounter, you had, you, Robbie, Noah, Doc, with the exception of my scent and my piss, all the familiar scents were there.
That's where we found that hunting blind too.
Yep.
And that track that canine track that was almost 7 inches across. Yeah. That's a big canine. I don't care where you live. A 7-inch canine track is a big damn canine track.
Yeah. Well,
Larry, yes, I have been in contact with Fred.
I'm convinced that is a territorial boundary between Dogman and Bigfoot.
Yeah.
I am. I'm sorry. Every legend about them from these various races and cultures is that the two don't like each other.
Yeah.
And the fact you've had that much activity in the same 5 or 10 acres of land.
Rodney wants us to play the howl. Okay. Rodney, you asked for it. Here it goes.
Here we go. What do y'all?
You ought to seen this reaction right here when you played
What?
that.
That was recorded about 5 miles from Robbie's house.
Tempest
What
is
the-
sitting on my Tempest
What
is sitting on
the-
my lap. You played that. She was like,
What the cousin humping love
"It's okay."
was that?
That was recorded on a Ring doorbell camera about 10 miles from where Robbie's sitting right now in South Carolina, near an area where Robbie's dad had heard a similar call, and there have been sightings of a dogman creature near what they call the horse pasture,
Oh yeah.
which is exactly why Robbie set his first book there, because it ties into the local legends.
Definitely a brown bear or a black bear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course.
Possibly swamp gas.
Refracting off
Refracting off
Mars
Venus.
or Mars, Venus, whatever. You know, whichever one with the other one looking over the shoulder and with a mirror at the 45-degree angle and reflecting the. She was like, "I'm
when
done
you
with
said
this."
You're playing a howl. I thought I was going to hear Robbie make his howl and get the return sound from the owl.
No, that was an
I was not
actual
prepared for that.
howl that was recorded in South Carolina a few months ago.
I am way too sober for this shit.
Judy said I'd almost dozed off. That sure woke me up. Got the old ticker thumping.
Woke you up. I have,
Brian Weeble,
I have
Brian
a cramp
Barber
in every
says,
sphincter in my body.
Brian Barber says, what in the name of Scooby Doo was that? We believe that was a dog man.
Yep. I mean, like DA said, there's a reason that I wrote the first book the way I did, because all this
So-
stuff kind of coincided.
So
Brian
I'm
Barber
wearing
said the dog quit chewing on his bone and looked at the TV.
I was about to say, Brian, I'm wearing earbuds. So, theoretically, my sound's controlled. My Shepherd Husky dog is about 10 feet from me. She dropped her ears and tucked her tail between her legs when the sound came on.
It always gets
With
weird reactions
my
from people's
earpods.
pets, which makes me believe that's a real howl. Because if
Yeah.
that was just something somebody made up with a mixing board, most animals would ignore it. But if that's a legitimate animal and pets are reacting to it.
Oh, yeah.
Tempest was sitting on my lap when you played that, and by the time you hit the second one, she was like down and over. And I don't even know where she went, to be honest
Yeah.
with you.
Screw this,
Well,
I'm out.
Yeah, she's like, "I'm
Rachel
gone."
and Rachel and Andrew play anime all the time on television with all kinds of screams and, demonic sounds and things like that. And the dogs don't react to it. So that was something. Of course,
Now
Kenai's deaf as a, dust bunny, so he didn't hear shit. But Cora definitely reacted to it. Didn't you, baby girl?
I played it one time.
Where's that wolf,
I
baby?
played it one time over the speakers here in my office, and Harley left the room. He just he was laying there sleeping, and he sat up, looked around, and left. He went in and stayed by Mama. Harold Goodell says his dog's perked up.
Yeah. She was standing in the hallway and her tail tucked and those ears dropped.
Thank you, Anderson. Appreciate that. Got a super chat from Anderson Ball College. Thank you so much.
Yeah, scary stuff, baby.
You add that howl to the footage and the experiences we've had down at Joe Bald. If we'd have heard that howl at Joe Bald, I don't think we'd have needed a Robbie Wrangler. I'd have needed to beat Robbie to the car. He'd been like the Blue Cyclone. He jumped in, locked the doors, and wasn't about to let anybody in.
Now you know that's not true because y'all are already in the car and were screaming at me to get in the car when that thing was walking down the river coming towards us.
Mm-hmm. Like,
And that was a visual, and it was actually walking towards us.
yeah, it was walking
Y'all like,
across the current, coming right at
get
us.
your dumb ass in the car right now. So I can't run that fast. I can't run as fast as Blue Cyclone anyway. So I just say, well, if it's gonna
Hey,
get me, it's
Punk,
gonna
you
get me.
forgot the chair.
You know, from now on, when you all are using, you know, radios and using call signs, old Jed here is gonna be a grunt, brute force and ignorance.
At least the ignorance part.
Rodney said we should play it next time we're at Joe Bald.
That's a good idea.
Play it in Moon Valley.
Woo! Lord have mercy. Rodney, you coming?
I'm telling you, if we play that in Moon Valley, we need more guns. Because we got a violent reaction when it was just the four of us.
Was Moon Valley where you had the thermals?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's where Doc
okay.
kept saying, thermal don't lie, man. Thermal don't lie.
Thermal don't lie. Thermal don't lie.
Doc is usually pretty well composed, and with him sitting across the table from me, halfway into his, we dram there, he was getting very animated and getting very anxious. His eyes were darting around like he was on cocaine.
Made a believer out of Doc that night. He already was a believer, but he'd never had an actual sighting of his own. He got that on thermal, and
Well,
I told him, I said, once you got confirmation in your head, it changes things.
To hear his southern drawl moving faster than my mouth, and his eyes darting around like that, I mean, he was puckered.
Angela Monroe says y'all need to record that. Well, Robbie and them should be here in a couple of weeks. And if we go to Moon Valley, okay. We're going to Moon Valley. That's going to happen. But
hey, I need to be included on this one because I have yet to see Moon Valley.
We go to Moon Valley, we need to take a really good Bluetooth speaker to play that on. We'll play that and then record what happens.
Might be our last recording, but we'll record it. Right. You didn't hear that, did you, Steve?
If we got enough signal, we might go live. We got enough signal, we might go live for Moon Valley. They can watch right up to the point till the camera falls over.
Oh shit!
We'll have to get that footage, and you'll have me like the Blair Witch Project with that tight nose close up, and me just with snot bubble in one nostril.
I'm so scared. Ugly crying, trying to get in the car.
Oh, I'll be ugly crying like Tobey Maguire, man.
Harold Goodell says, Holly said she'll ship you a Bose speaker. Dude, that would be awesome. Because I've only Bluetooth speakers I've got aren't good enough quality to really play a really good audio reproduction.
You know, you've got a good recorder now, but it doesn't have output.
Right.
Unfortunately.
I need a really good Bluetooth speaker to play that out there in Moon Valley. Harold, shoot me a message. Maybe we can make that happen. That would be freaking awesome. But speakers don't get much better than Bose.
That'd be the last sight they see of me, Rodney, is that red and blue light as I'm running in the woods towards them. DA said, "Get your ass back over here."
I can guarantee you one thing. Unlike a certain Mountain Mysteries or Mountain Monsters, or whatever the hell that show's called, if you see the camera get put down and you hear gunshots, we're engaging something. It's not for a show.
Yeah, you've gone hot. You know, basically when we go out, our rules of engagement are you don't shoot it unless immediate loss of life and limb is coming. So, and these guys are all disciplined, like I said, LEOs, military. Even me with my limited experience, as scared to death as I was, down at Combs Ferry, I never cleared leather.
Well, we've only cleared leather, twice, DA?
Yeah.
Once at Joe Ball, that time with me, it was just me, you, and Noah. No, 3 times. Joe Ball when it was just me, you, and Noah. Combs Ferry that night when it was just me, you, and Noah waiting to come back, and then Moon Valley that night. That's only 3 times that we've cleared leather.
Yep.
In the multiple times that we've been out. So, and all the times we've been out, that's pretty good. Pretty good ratio, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. Roxanne says you're going to go at night or day to Moon Valley. The simple answer is yes. We're probably going to do both. We're probably going to get down there early enough and set up during the day and do some filming and recording and take some pictures, because I've got the telephoto lens on my Canon and my little Canon Rebel. And I'm going to get some pictures and see if I can get some good shots, establishing shots and stuff for the web, for the Patreon and stuff for the YouTube channel as well. So we're going to go down there during the day and film and stuff. But then once it gets dark, we're going to start trying to call stuff in, and we will definitely be filming that.
Well, and this time, the thermal that
We got to
Doc's
figure out
got.
how to record the thermal.
Well, that's what I was about to say. The thermal that Doc has now will slave into phone, laptop, whatever.
I got to say, that new thermal camera Doc got, he got a good one. He sent me some pictures he took of a group of mule deer that were about 200 yards away, and you could see them crystal clear.
That's awesome.
So this is going to be a good one to film with.
Yep.
Well,
so
and I would say if you put that on your best camera, and then if you as a backup camera in case you get any electromagnetic interference, figure out who has the best cell phone and slave it into that. Just so you have something unrelated device, or another DSLR camera.
Doc's got that thermal. He's got actually Bluetooth to a phone, so you can record with it, and you can have it up on the app on the phone, and you can take stills and copy video. It's a pretty nice one, and we're going to be able to have multiple backups.
Awesome. Well, I was just thinking of the fact that there have been many reports of electromagnetic interference at these kind of places, and it would suck to basically get EMP'd out of having a decent footage.
If we're going to go down there and we're going to play that, we want to take a few more people, and I've already got the folks in mind.
Well, as much as I joked, count me in, because I want to have a good story in Valhalla when I get there.
That's right.
Well, you'll be sitting right next to me, Steve.
Oh, hell yeah. Right by the mead.
Because I'm probably going to be the first one, because I'm the dumbass that goes straight towards it.
Well,
you and I both went straight toward it last time.
Well,
yeah, fair.
Realistically, I'll be in the first couple, just because the fact that I probably had the least combat experience of all y'all. So I would be in trouble.
Bring your 1911 so we can swap mags.
Yeah, because that's pretty much what
me, Robbie, and Doc will all be carrying ours.
So, well, I think I'm probably going to have my Glock 17, just because I have the most mags for it, and I will probably, as a backup, I will have my 45 in a shoulder rig, just to have a little bit more stopping power if I need it.
Richie, I would love to get optics for my pew-pews, but I don't have the money to get optics right now. Just can't do it.
Me and DA and Doc all had our 45s, but I also had my 357 in the pouch of my little bag. I think you had your Glock, didn't you, DA?
I had the Glock, and I had my 357 in that little green bag.
And Doc had his 10mm Glock on a chest rig, and
Noah had
his dagger,
his dagger,
and his 30-30.
And I had my M1 Garand in the back of the car, the truck, but I never got it out.
And you were carrying my 12 gauge shotgun, and me and Doc both had our 458 SOCOMs. So we was healed pretty heavy.
Yeah, we was definitely going healed. Well healed. Steve, yeah, I did hear something about the seismic activity along the New Madrid. I don't want that to go off major again. No, no, thank you.
Can you imagine?
Sean Doherty says, DA, I was going to tell you I might have 2 experiences that might be Sasquatch experiences. Hey, I'd love to hear about them. You want to email me, send them on my email at daroberts@daroberts.net. I'd love to check them out. Harold Goodell says Buffalo Boar carries a plus P45. Mine may not be plus P, but they're all law enforcement grade.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's what I've got in my 45. Although my Smith and Wesson is actually rated for a plus P. So that looks oddly familiar. It's nice to have a friend in the industry.
Well, boys, we are after the 2-hour mark. Be looking forward to the coming shows because, like I said, Robbie and Doc are going to be in just after Memorial Day, and we're going to grab Steve and probably Wyatt and Steve Payton if he wants to make the drive down, because I want some folks that I can trust with a firearm at our back.
Shoot you.
Yeah, that won't shoot me by mistake. All I can say is if you do shoot me, don't shoot me somewhere with a flesh wound. Just put me down. I mean, I don't make me suffer. All right, I lost my train of thought, but yeah, be looking for those coming up. The last week of May, first week of June. We'll be putting some videos up in the private section here on YouTube. We'll also be putting videos up on the Patreon. So if you're a member of the channel or you're a member of the Patreon, you'll see those videos before we put them up anywhere else. We're also going to try to, if we've got signal in Moon Valley, which, knock on wood, we should. If we've got a good enough signal, we may try to go live from down there. I know Steve's car's got a Wi-Fi hotspot in it, but I don't know how much of a signal it'll get down in that valley.
Yeah, mine's got it's a 4G AT&T network.
Okay.
So if that, whatever that will provide us down there.
Well, if we take a group of people, we're going to have to take more than one vehicle. Just that way it's going to have to be. So we may, if you don't mind driving down there, Steve, we may take your little 4G hotspot and maybe we can actually do a live broadcast from down in Moon Valley.
No worries. And I actually have a Bose stereo system in the car.
Nice.
We made a joke when I first bought the thing, since it had the Wi-Fi and it was all-wheel drive, that it was going to be a cryptid intercept vehicle. It's about time the thing earns its keep.
That's right.
I've almost paid the note on it.
Yeah, Moon Valley would be a good one. If you've got signal down at Joe Bald or down on Blunk Road, maybe we can do a live down there. We might have a series of lives, at least short ones, from some of these locations, as long as we got some signal.
Because we tried to do that before, we just didn't have the signal to do it.
Right, it didn't work. Yeah, the signal down at both Blunk Road and Moon and Joe Bald were spotty at best.
Yeah. Well, I know just from experience with the hotspot on my car, I could drive through Mark Twain National Forest and still stream a movie. Nice. They're on Missouri Highway 8. So hopefully that would give us enough bandwidth.
I would think so.
It's a decent hotspot.
I would think it would work just fine.
And then my phone is Verizon, so that gives us 2 networks plus whatever y'all's networks are. I'm on
AT&T, so.
What network do you have in your stuff, Robbie?
Do what?
What cell phone network does yours use?
Verizon.
Verizon. Okay, so we got 2 Verizon, 2 AT&T, plus
I don't know
whatever
what
the rest of the
Dr.
Nightmare Hunters bring.
I want to say Doc's on Verizon too. It seemed like we had that discussion last time we was down there.
Bobby Presnell says, any plans to visit Southeast Oklahoma? Not this trip, but there is some places down in Southeast Oklahoma we want to go. Specifically, we want to go over in the Ouachitas, over near where we want to see if we can find the spot where the Choctaw Bigfoot War allegedly happened. We want to see if we can find the spot.
Well, I'd eventually like to see all the places that show up in the books.
That's one
You
of them.
know,
That is
like
one of them.
you know, eating at that pizza place where the Hotabataneo ate. That was
we
pretty
can
badass.
go there. I mean, that's
know.
that's 30 minutes from here, just down at Rockaway
But I
Beach.
know, but you know, I bet I've been there. My point is, you'll be able to see them all. You know,
Oh yeah,
sitting there, you know, when you and I were sitting there bullshitting, eating our you know, pub food, you know, looking over where you know, Gray Eagle would have been sitting, you know, and it's like all the people that drove to the middle of nowhere at Fort Leonard Wood looking for Steve's, you know.
Roxanne says, DA, when will you be on Mike's podcast? I believe the date we settled on was the 20th of May. And I think we're going to be going live at 8:30. Robert D says Brown Springs is a bad place, I hear. I want to go to Brown Springs. That's on my to go list.
If you get bored during any of that 2 weeks, I am on vacation for 14 days.
Nice.
And I'm not planning on doing a whole hell of a lot. So
We could go down and have a pizza cellar if you want one of those nights.
yeah. Or if
You'll
nothing
like it.
else,
It's good.
if you just want to spring and have a, you know, get a little footage for something for, you know, the Patreon or whatever, you know, I'll be your wingman.
Hell yeah. We need to do that. Let
You
me know
know,
exactly what days you're going to be off, man. We're going to make some shit
you know,
happen. It's been too long
you know,
since you and I got to hang out anyway.
well, and our wives have already accepted we're going to do stupid shit together. So, you know,
Yeah,
it's not like we're getting into too much trouble.
Yeah, that's kind of an established fact at this point.
Well, one absolute requirement while y'all are together is we need to spread some of that whiskey as mentioned in the last Dark Frontiers book, and that $1,000 scotch that is sitting on my counter waiting for the special occasion. I think we might have found one we can share a little bit with.
Sounds good. Mary Cole says, I'd love for y'all to do an around the campfire show when you're all together. We could do that around the fire pit in my backyard. On my definitely, we could definitely stream because I can do it from Wi-Fi. Yeah, that'd be
you
fun.
even
We
like
could
that
do that.
scotch, didn't you, there, Jed?
Yep, I did.
Well, folks, we're going to start winding things down. We're after the 2-hour mark. I think we actually broke 200 viewers. I think at one point we had over 200 people watching us live, which is freaking
I
awesome.
counted 203.
So big shout out and thank you to everybody that's been watching us and hanging out with us. If you haven't had a chance, please hit the like, share, and subscribe button. It really helps the channel continue to grow. We're at 9,500 now. We're heading for 10,000. So hopefully we'll break 10,000 soon. 10,000 is a big point, big milestone when it comes to YouTube, because then we start going farther into the algorithm. We'll get mentioned more. We'll get recommended more. So 10,000 is kind of a big deal. So can't wait to hit it. But you know, that'll really help the channel start growing again and help us continue to get out there. Algorithm is still showing that we only about a third of the people that watch the show are actually subscribed to the channel. So if you're watching this video and you haven't had a chance, please take a second and hit that subscribe button. Doesn't cost you anything. Helps the channel continue to grow, and it really helps us continue to improve the channel and to grow the channel. So we appreciate each and every one of those, and we'd love the chance to earn your like and subscribe. And hope you guys enjoyed the content. And if you have enjoyed this, please let people know that you know that enjoy this kind of thing, because we do this twice a week. We get up here and act like idiots and talk about cryptids and sometimes other things that go bump in the night. And we enjoy doing it, and we enjoy spending our evenings with you all. So we really appreciate each and every one of you folks for being part of the family here, the part of the DAExMachiNation. But we're at that part of the show where I want to take a quick moment and mention the 22 a Day Foundation. We lose 22 veterans a day to suicide, and that is 22 too many. So reach out, check on your friends and family who are veterans or active duty, still on duty, whether they be National Guard, reserves, active duty, however they served. Also check on your friends and family that are first responders in any capacity. If they've worn a uniform and put themselves on the line to keep us free and to keep us safe, we owe them a debt of gratitude. Reach out to them, let them know you're thinking about them, let them know you care, because you never know when that text you send might be what keeps them off the edge that day. Because I like to say, don't let the hard days win, but at least 22 times a day they do. So let's see if we can get 22 down to 0. Let everybody know you're thinking about them. Let them know you care about them. Also want to mention the good folks over at Sigwo Arms. Sigwo is our most recent sponsor, and I was going to give away a hat tonight. God dang it. Should we give away a hat? You guys somebody want a hat?
I would say so. You still got 175 dedicated miscreants on here with us.
Well, let's give away a hat real quick then. Who would like this awesome Sigwo Arms hat? It's a snapback trucker style mesh back hat. I have one that I wear. It's a very comfortable hat. It's a good quality hat. And, this is directly from the good folks over at Sigwo Arms. So, you know what? I've got a hat and I got some Sigwo stickers. So, how about we give out 3 stickers? Now, let's do 2 stickers. We'll do 2 stickers and a hat. How's that sound? So, let's see. Let me get some paper to write this on. Got to find me a blank piece of paper. Here we go. All right. Let's do a little trivia for these, okay? First piece of trivia. How about what book does the character Gideon first appear in? Now, don't say Codename Wild Hunt, because you might be wrong. What book does Gideon first appear in? Happy birthday, Harold. It's Harold's birthday tomorrow. Happy birthday, Harold.
Happy birthday.
That's a good question and a mean one there, DA.
Wyatt, good guess. Incorrect. Challen, no, it's not Dark Frontiers. It's not Lakeview Man. Who said Blood Moon? Oh, Toshi the Wolf got it.
Toshi Wolf, yep.
He first appears in Blood Moon. Okay, Toshi, shoot me an email, and I will send you that first sticker.
Yeah, DA Roberts at daroberts.net.
That is the one.
You were right, and I was trying to help.
Okay. That was kind of an easy question. Toshi, shoot me your contact information. I'll get that mailed out to you this week. Probably Monday or Tuesday, because the post office will be closed tomorrow. Second sticker. Another trivia question. Robbie, give us a trivia question from your book.
Okay. Let's see. In the first book, what is the name of the area where all the hunt or all the killing and the final fight culminates in? There's a specific name of that area.
Is it the area I mentioned earlier in the show?
Yes, you mentioned it earlier in the show.
Okay. That's
So-
what I thought, but I wanted to be sure.
Sorry, Steve. You he said you ain't read it. That's fine, but he did mention it earlier in the
I did
show.
mention it earlier in the show.
And a little bit more specific than that, Robert D. No, not Moon Valley. You're
Nope.
close, Curtis.
In South Carolina, but it's not Missouri.
Paul Webb got it. He's got it.
Paul Webb.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's the
Paul had
horse
a little bit of a
pasture. He's
stroke
got,
while riding it, but he has it.
he's got it horse pasture, but it's the horse pasture.
Yep. All right, Paul. Shoot me an email at daroberts@daroberts.net, and I will get that mailed out to you. Like I said, post office is closed tomorrow. I'll try to get that up to you Monday or Tuesday. Now, for the hat. Sigbo Arms hat. Steve, how about you give us a trivia question for the hat?
Oops. See, I almost want to be a little bit shifty about it, since it is a hat. I need to make it a little more difficult than the stickers, I think. I want to see how closely y'all actually paid attention. Chronologically, as far as like publication date, what was the first D.A. Roberts novel in which the fictitious Steve appeared?
Which version?
Mm.
Because Steve appeared twice.
I will take either one, but my mind is the one that's in mass publication currently, the one I first read it in. But I'm willing to accept either if you're okay with that, DA.
Okay, that's fine. I think Wyatt got it.
Yep, I think.
Wyatt got it. It was first appearance in the Lakeview Man when Clark got airlifted from the gunfight by Chopper.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Nicely done, Wyatt.
Yeah, the true nature of Steve has not been explained to this Steve yet, but somehow the ER nurse and the guy that owns the bar are both Steve. Stay tuned.
Yeah. All right, Wyatt, buddy, we'll be seeing you before long. I'll just give you the hat instead of mailing it to you. I'll save it for you when we cross paths again.
That was such a throwaway line. I'm actually shocked that they got it that fast.
Wyatt was right on it, man.
I mean, dude, yeah.
Hell, I wrote that when I was still working at Cox.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you wrote that shortly after my my fangirl experience, when I realized that one of my best friends was D.A. Roberts, the famous author.
Well, I don't know about famous. Infamous, maybe.
You know, like I said, even though I would never have read your stuff had Amazon not gone, well, because you read this, perhaps you'd like this. So, I mean, it was popular enough. It tripped the right algorithm that it sent it to me. It was just dumb luck and stupidity that you happen to be my friend.
The look on your face still cracks me up. That just
oh my God,
look of shock on your face.
Oh, I had a fangasm. It wasn't even funny. I knew D.A. Roberts was a local writer.
He's a fangirl experience. I guess she wants to hear the story.
Oh, so of course, I work as a registered nurse at a local hospital to where DA and I live. And prior to maiming his spinal cord, DA was kind of the nighttime security chief for our group. He was the sergeant of the night shift. And so, when you work night shift in a hospital and you work on a floor where you get a lot of psych overflow, you make sure that you stay good friends with the security detail, because they're the ones that are going to save your ass when somebody flips their shit. And as a security officer, you kind of want to know what nurses you can rely on, that if you go down, they can pick up the fight and get you out of there. So it basically, we had a bro code understanding that he would try to keep me from getting hurt. And if he went down, I'd grab his backup and his trauma kit and pick up the fight. And so, we developed a pretty good friendship. We became brothers. Well, I'm an avid reader, and one of my all-time favorite authors on the planet, as I've thrown the name out before, is Jonathan Mayberry. He's just a big writer. Look him up. His stuff's amazing. Well, for those of you who have Kindle accounts, know that if you buy a book, it'll say, well, because you enjoyed such and such by this author, you might like this. Because you like, Lakeview Man, you might like, the following book by Robbie Raines. You'll get those algorithm suggestions. Well, it was recommended that I try to start reading a piece of this. I'm drawing a complete blank on the name of that series, brother.
Ragnarok.
Your zombie series.
Ragnarok Rising.
Ragnarok. Thank the Ragnarok Rising series. I had just read Jonathan Mayberry's Patient Zero, which takes a zombie uprising, and I said you might like this, and it sent me an excerpt. I'm like, oh, it's pretty badass. D.A. Roberts. I read like a chapter, and because that's what the sample it gave me. I'm like, hey, that's set in Springfield. That's pretty badass. And I was sitting there reading it, and of course, I downloaded the first 2 books at that time, and I was like, I really like these. I really like this D.A. Roberts guy. And DA, or as I knew him, Doug, and I were bullshitting. And he goes, yeah, I'm a local writer. I'm like, really? What do you write? He goes, well, right now I just got a Zombie series out, but I'm trying to, do some other stuff. And I'm like, well, what's it called? And he's like, Ragnarok Rising. I said, why is that so familiar to me? I said, you write under your name? And he goes, no, I write under D.A. Roberts. And literally I screamed, oh my God, you're D.A. Roberts. And he starts laughing his ass off. And, it was like I met Stephen King. It was one of those things. And he's a cop and a level 1 hospital security officer. It wasn't like we were at Dragon Con or the Saturn Awards or something like this. We were on the nurse's station at my hospital, and I totally fangirled over it, and he still teases me about it. And I downloaded the rest of that series and read it and loved it. And he talked about wanting to spread out into some other series. And when on my birthday, the day the first Codename Wild Hunt book dropped, I got a first printing autographed copy from D.A. Roberts while barbecuing at my house. So it was pretty badass. And, years later, somebody had one of those experiences with me from watching the podcast. Remember that patient of mine? She was getting some treatment for, an undisclosed medical condition. And she was wearing a DAExMachiNation t-shirt. I'm like, well, that's pretty cool. I said, I like your shirt. And this is during COVID. So, of course, I'm wearing goggles and a mask. And she goes, yeah, I really love the podcast. Yeah, the D.A. Roberts, he's a local writer. He writes about stuff here in the Ozarks. And I said, yeah. I said, you like the podcast? He goes, absolutely. He goes, I love the banter between these two guys. And I pulled my mask down. I said, I don't care for that photo that much. And she shrieked. She goes like, oh my God, you're Steve. You're the guy that owns the bar. Yeah, I don't own a bar. It's a misconception. but the DA versus Steve does.
Although we've kind of adopted a bar, kind of as the Steve's Pub and Grub.
Yeah, I love your
Unofficial.
reaction when I took you there the first time. I took Robbie there first. When Doc came into town, Robbie's like, you got to go there. It's Steve's, man. It's totally Steve's.
It's nice. It's very nice.
And the food's good.
Nice.
Well,
the
hello,
food's good.
Harley. Hello, Harley.
It's not Rachel's cooking, but it's not bad.
What are you doing? You want to say hi?
Hey, Harley.
He's right over here. I don't know if you can see him.
I see the crown of his head.
There he is.
There he is. Hi, big boy.
Hey, boy. Goofy doggers. Yeah. He's getting his ears scratched. He's happy. Well, Again, check out the good folks over at Sigwo Arms. Hope you guys enjoy the stickers and the hats. Reach out to me, and we'll get those stickers mailed out to you. Wyatt, I'll get that to you as soon as we can hook up. No sense mailing it. Wyatt just lives down the road a little ways. He lives in Arkansas. He lives on the other side of Branson, so it is a bit of a ways, but better than mailing it. Little Bree Bree says, great shows the past few weeks, guys. Thanks a lot. Well, thank you. We're really glad. We're glad you guys enjoyed it. Roxanne, who knows? We may be doing a meet and greet in this area sometime soon. So it'd be awesome to have a bunch of people that, especially locals, come and hang out and chat with us. I'm still looking into finding us a campground where we can take over for a few days. If I can find one, then I want to plan us a meet and greet of our own. And I think
I hear Joe Bald has an open one that nobody's ever using.
I don't know if anybody wants to gather down at Joe Bald. Now there'd be some folks probably want to go down there, but as far as camping there, I don't know if we get away with that.
I'm totally kidding. There's no way.
We dang sure ain't gonna be able to camp. Yeah, I can't camp at Combs Ferry. There ain't enough left of it.
No, I'm just joking. My dumb ass ain't gonna go to camp down there.
We used to be able to camp in Moon Valley, but it's all private property now. They closed that campground. I camped down there many a night back when I was younger.
Wyatt, Combs Ferry. Fuck you, Wyatt. With nothing but love, brother. Fuck you, Wyatt.
But folks, like I said, check out the good folks over at Sigwo Arms. They do custom work. They got some absolutely fantastic deals on handguns and silencers. So check out sigwo.com. And you won't be disappointed. I mean, they've got some amazing stuff. And coming soon from them will be custom wild hunt ARs. So you guys will definitely want to check those out. I should have mine in the next, hopefully, couple weeks. We'll see. Depends on how quickly they get to it. They're making me a 300 blackout wild hunt.
Oh, that's amazing.
It's going to be awesome. Roxanne says, I used to camp at Joe Bald many years ago. I did too, back way before it was closed. But, I don't know that I'd want to try to camp there now. But again, folks, thank you guys. Check out Sigwo. Don't forget to check out our other affiliates. Check out Dark Angel Medical, darkangelmedical.com for the best in the business med kits. And you can get 20% off of your kits by using by discount code Cryptid20. Check them out. Check out Ken Brock. Check out Robbie's awesome books. He's got 2 out, fixing to have 3 before I get another one done. But although I am closing in on finishing Lakeview Man Dead of Winter, it's about 66,000 words now, I think it is. So hopefully I'll have that finished maybe by Monday, Tuesday, and then I've got to sort out how I'm going to handle the cover. But we'll deal with that one step at a time.
So Shadow Walker Silver Star is the second one, correct?
Silver Star's
first.
The first one. So what's the second one in case Amazon does that dumb algorithm thing where you can't find it?
Shadow Walker's Creature of Skateboard Swamp.
Okay. Because I remember I had a fit. I was like, Robbie Rains. Okay, Robbie Jed Rains. And then I put in the name of the first book, and then it gave me both of them. I'm like, it's hard to buy them when you won't give them to me, bastards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And while you're at it, if you like Robbie's books, check out my books at DARoberts.net. I've got 35 books currently in print, looking to add to that, and I'm going to keep building the library. And the way Robbie's going, he's going to catch me in about 6 months. But man, I wish him Godspeed. I mean, I've said it many times. I have never ever viewed other authors as my competition, because they're not. I mean, I could pan my camera and show you my bookshelf, which is on the other side of the room, and there's a couple hundred books on there by a slew of different authors. I don't know anybody that only reads one author. So there's room on that bookshelf for tons of authors. So it doesn't, just because somebody buys my book doesn't mean they can't enjoy Robbie's. If somebody buys Heath Stallcup's book Genosqua, which is a good book, Somebody buys that doesn't mean they won't buy one of mine. So I think there's plenty of room, and I don't see other authors as my competition. In fact, if anything, Robbie and I have kind of made it kind of a friendly competition to kind of encourage each other, not to try to tear each other down. And
We
that's
can
the way
boost
it
each
should
other's
be.
signal. Like they said, that algorithm, what's going to happen is people are going to go, oh, because you read Dark Frontiers, you might like Shadow Walkers. It's going to get that boosted signal, and
Right.
that's how you and that's how you and I started. And you've become my favorite author. But if it weren't for me reading that competing author's book, I wouldn't have heard of your stuff as an author, at least not as quickly as I did.
And while I would love to be on the level of a Jonathan Mayberry, I'll get there one day. And I don't have to do it by stepping on another author. And if I
Look,
can help another author
at
along
the
the way,
bottom
that's
of
exactly what
at the
I'm
bottom
doing.
of my book, see what it says?
Right next to one of mine. Look at that.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta love that, dude.
That's
That
awesome.
is
Yep.
freaking cool.
It has my second book and Demon of Paldura County, but then you roll over and there's Heart of Iron. There's
Funny.
Try the Wendigo. Deathstalks Moon Valley is next. So, yeah, and then there's Howl of the Wolfman.
That's awesome.
So that's the whole thing. Lakeview Man is on there. Now, I don't know that if you look at DA's books, mine shows up yet, but to me, that's when somebody looks at my books and says, "Hey, if you like this book, you'll like DA's." That to me is the ultimate compliment because
Same with Eric. I mean, Eric's kicking out books, and if they people see his books because of mine, awesome. I mean, I'm down for it. I want to support other authors, and I'm perfectly happy to share what I've learned along the way.
But to me, that's the biggest compliment I can get is if somebody compares my books and says, if you like these books, you'll like this. That's what I'm. That to me means that I've gone where I need to go and where I want to go.
Roxanne,
See,
no, I haven't had a chance to read his most recent book, but I will be getting it soon.
I am waiting for the time where, DA verse characters show up in Shadow Walkers or vice versa. Or, the day Daniel Clark meets Joe Ledger or whatever, that would be the hallmark right there. Just
Oh, I would love for one of my characters to show up in a crossover and just that's what happened with me and Cam. We just kind of he did a crossover story where some of the Hunt have showed up, and I've done some Steve Lilly stories, and I love that. I think it's awesome. I think it's a great way to support another creator.
and it was so awesome. And just to know that it was in the same universe, kind of Marvel made the multiverse thing a thing. And it's kind of cool when you see that it's the same universe. And technically you probably are in the same universe as Jonathan Mayberry, because Steve had a walk-on in the Dragon Factory and died.
Or did he?
And it was this Steve. Steve has also had a walk-on in one of Mike Evans' books and died horribly.
Mike's a good writer too. Yeah, if you guys haven't had a chance to check out Mike, check out Mike. We need to get Mike back on the show. I keep forgetting to do it.
He wants to be back on the show. He's a good dude and a damn good author, much like present company.
Well, thank you, sir. Much appreciated.
I'm a little concerned that I, college years wise, I'm on paper the most educated individual, and I'm the only illiterate fuck who hasn't written a book here. But I'm not jealous. I love you guys, and I will support you all.
We appreciate it, brother. Again, now that we're starting to wind things down, we went another 30 minutes after saying we were winding it down.
It's the South. It's okay.
Yeah, I want to say a big, happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there, to all who partake, so to speak. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. Big shout out to my own wife, Annette, for Mother's Day. My mother been gone since 1982, but I still miss her and still wish her a happy Mother's Day, because she was awesome. and all of the ladies out there who've put up with all of our crap and raised sons and daughters and given their all to protect their families. We salute each and every one of you, and thank you guys for being who you are and for loving us unconditionally, even when we're morons. In fact, especially when we're morons. But well, now that we're winding her down, and we've talked about some of the books, we've talked about some of the associates, and I feel pretty good about giving them all shout outs. Don't forget to check out Scallywag Tactical too. DA Roberts 10% off. Throw that in there real fast. But we're going to close her out with a different toast tonight, because the toast we normally use is a little melancholy. And since tomorrow's Mother's Day, and it's technically Mother's Day already in some parts of the country, and we're gonna make it a little more upbeat toast. And I've used it before, and Steve knows which one I'm talking about because I stole it from Paul. And I love this toast. It's a great toast. And Paul ends his shows with it. He's a musician, and I stole the toast. And a damn good musician. And so we're gonna steal Paul's toast and close out the show. And absolutely wonderful toast and a great sentiment, and happy Mother's Day to y'all out there. But the quote says, "There are good ships and wood ships and ships that sail the sea, but the best ships are friendships, and may they always be." Thank you all so much for being part of the family here at the DAExMachiNation. God bless each and every one of you. Have a happy and safe Mother's Day. Slanjama.
Slanjama.
Slanja.
Thank you for joining us. Catch us again Wednesdays and Saturdays on DAEx Machina. A special thanks to all our channel members and Patreon supporters. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe.